Dogs of Warcry is a podcast from the Mortal Realms focusing on Warcry, a fast-paced cinematic skirmish game by Games Workshop. Join us for discussions on gameplay, rules, lore, painting, terrain building, campaigns, and events.
Welcome to Dogs of Warcry. In Episode 5, we will discuss some of the unique themes, lore, and secrets mentioned across the Warcry books, and how you might use them for an overarching narrative in your games or campaigns. My name is Josh, and answering the call with me this week is Paven. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been a nice, relaxing holiday break, and kind of back at it. It's been good.
Yeah. I had a nice time, and we got hit with some Warcry news that I'm very excited to talk about. And also, we have a great show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lots of interesting topics.
Yeah, and we were talking beforehand. I usually don't do this much show prep, but I'm excited to see how it pays off.
And everything you learned along the way.
Yeah. But let's kick it off, and then we're going to kick it off with some hobby progress, or the Forge of Mithraxis. Josh, what have you been working on?
Yeah, over this holiday period that we had, I was able to actually start working on a test scheme for my Canite Shadowstalkers. And I've got some things I like on the model and some things I don't, so I'm kind of revisiting it in my head in terms of what I might try or approach it differently to see if I like that progress better. But it was nice. Had a little virtual hobby call with my nephew, and then my stepson Ben was with us. We painted for like 2 hours, so I had a lot of fun doing that, kind of working all together, encouraging each other, and getting started on that paint scheme. How about yourself?
Right. I must confess, I haven't gotten a ton done since our last show. I think like most nerds, I got derailed into Hades, which is a super fun, what do they call those types of games? They call them roguelikes, by the same guys that did Bastion and Transistor. That was a very fun game. I kind of lost a week to that, and then World of Warcraft Shadowlands just came out, and I've been pulled into that. So the hobby's taking a hit, but I do have some things to report. First, my Green Stuff World rollers came in, and so that was what I was waiting on to work on my bases for my Signs of the Flame. Right. So I got those all rolled out. The method the basing scheme I'm doing is I roll out a base, and so you put down like a layer of what I'm using is brown stuff, but some sort of sculpting clay. You roll out the texture on it, and for me, I'm doing kind of a cobblestone. And then once it's all dry and I've cleaned it up, I tear it off the base and tear it up into sections, and then I expand that to 2 or 3 bases. So, and then I fill in the rest with a modeling or a basing paste. And I stick a skull in or some rocks, and I prime them all, and then I'm going to paint them. And I'm going for some kind of ruined castle or a dungeon. My mind is going dungeon, although I might do tuft. And can you grow a tuft in a dungeon? Sure, why not? It depends on how the color combination works with the rest of them. So I got those all primed. I haven't painted them all. I've also worked on... I had said I had gotten 2 initiates done, kind of the lowest level guys of the Scions, as part of the second wave to add to my warband. I went back to the second initiate, and she was looking too similar in profile and silhouette to the first one. So I took my hobby knife and I gave her like kind of a haircut. Because that will really change like the face silhouette and make her look different, especially with the new paint scheme. And then I had to sculpt up some robes. So I pushed myself in the sculpting direction. I'm not very good at green stuff, but I'm trying to get better, like working at it at different times when it has different properties.
Oh yeah.
So I primed her. I primed all those bases, and then the last bit of hobby progress, I guess I will report, or I'll count it, is I did set up Gitsville with all of my Gloomspite Gits, and took very poor pictures of them, and then sent them to Games Workshop for Armies on Parade.
Awesome.
So yeah, I am. I wish I was better at taking photos, and I didn't do a backdrop, which, looking at the photos now, was a huge mistake, because you can just like see my dining room, and that's very distracting.
Gotcha.
But everything's a learning curve, and it was my first Armies on Parade participation.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
That's
feel
a
good
big
about that.
achievement.
Yeah. It's almost like a 2-year project. It ended up being like I started the Gits when they got released, I think Christmas 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now, but the show helped me create the terrain that is somewhat themed with them. So it was nice. I could have assemble a board without doing too much extra work. But that's it. That's all I can report. I know I talked a long time for very little actual progress, but
that's a lot of progress.
That's
so
podcasting, baby.
Made lots of little steps. That's all progress in the right directions. So that's good. Certainly more progress than I had.
Hopefully you got some paint on some figures though, and that's a big deal.
Yeah. That was a big hurdle, I guess, is getting over that initial step, and now it'll be easier. So that was a huge progress for me. But next we'll hit the path to glory, and unfortunately, neither of us got any games.
So, no glory to be had here. Just right. Cowards in the 8 points.
They're too busy searching for the next counter, I guess. But hopefully by the next time.
I don't know what the glory counterpart to no games is. We're just a random sacrifice, we're just like somebody picked off the streets of Carnbrad, unmourned, unremembered. That's our level of glory for 2 weeks. Maybe we're too hard on ourselves.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have to get Ben to help me with the challenge battle or something.
Yeah. Get us just Ben for the podcast content.
Yeah, right. We'll get him in here.
I'll tell you what, I have two plans, and I don't have good plans for getting more games in. One is like, maybe we'll get one more nice day, because you never know,
Yeah.
Maybe me and you could coordinate more tightly, and whenever there's a night day, we just take PTO and play a game. I don't know. And the other is, I hear, and this is probably a real stretch, I hear that the vaccine is coming out in December. For very specific people, right?
Yep.
I think it's for frontline healthcare workers, and then kind of going down a list. Assuming everything goes well. And I'm hoping one of my Warcry buddies works in the healthcare industry and also listens to podcasts. You know who you are. I'm hoping he can get a vaccine, and then me and him, I think, can play games safely indoors, because he's inoculated, and it would just be with me. I don't know if that's how it works. I don't know if you still should be more. Maybe we'll still mask up. I don't know. Yeah. Readers, listeners, tell me if I'm wrong. Write in dogsofwarcry@gmail.com. But maybe there'll be games happening this winter. Otherwise, it's going to be a cold winter. Cold winter without Warcry games to warm me up.
Yep. Yeah. Maybe we can do like a garage with the door closed and lights on, and that way it'd be still isolated but a little warmer. We could try it. Maybe I'll have to invest in a space heater.
It's gonna get it's pretty cold now. Temperature only goes down generally in Wisconsin.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we do have some really interesting things in Visions of Madness. What do we got, Paven?
Yesterday, when we were putting together show notes, yesterday morning or maybe Saturday night, there were no visions. We were drinking the potions, we were smelling the incense, we were making the sacrifices, and nothing. But the Dark Gods have blessed us with glimpses of a future that could be or will be or was in the form, and maybe I'm leaning too far into the RP, but in the form of new Warcry releases coming out, pre-order next weekend, and actually also the weekend after that. And well, Josh, run me through them. I'm too excited. I can't read the notes.
So the first thing we'll get for this next weekend on pre-order, so it won't come out for 2 weeks, is the battle tomes for the Grand Alliances. So each Grand Alliance will have their own Warcry battle tome. They promise hosts of new narratives, new quests, new fated quests, and some new narrative hooks for the new Grand Alliances for each one, which will have new heroes to incorporate in your warbands and new models you can use, and a wide range of different types of warbands. We saw some sneak peeks like the new Cities of Sigmar warbands. It'll be really interesting to see what's in on those 4 books. Looking forward to that so much.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Grand Alliance books are coming on pre-order this weekend coming up.
Yes.
I guess we're recording this on Monday, the 30th. So if when we say this weekend is the next one, who knows when the podcast comes out?
Right.
But yeah, the Grand Alliance books come out first, and then the Tome of Champions comes out the week after that. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's up for in the United States. They said the Tome of Champions would be up for pre-order December 12th.
Okay. Well, good. We can pace ourselves then.
Right.
Super excited for these books. Super excited for the content. I think we'll get a little bit more of the direction of the game out of the collection of all of these.
Mm-hmm.
Anything? Okay, let's talk about the Grand Alliance books first. Anything you're particularly looking for in there? Excited about faction rules? Anything?
Yeah, I think for the Order Grand Alliance, I'm really curious to see if they'll add the rest of the Kahadran heroes. Because when the Kahadran Overlords came out in January, we only had access to the normal Order heroes. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the wider range of heroes that you can take as allies or potentially leaders in the warbands for the Order factions. So I think that's and for Death, I'm really curious to see how they incorporate Soulblight. But how about yourself, Paven?
Yes, I am excited for more monsters, particularly. Seeing what else I can get out of my collection I can get use out of. I'm also really excited toward, maybe after the Signs of the Flames project, or like as part of that project going into Slaves to Darkness. And I'm hoping they expand the amount of models I can use for that range, especially like Chaos Knights. And I even think I saw a picture of the Karkadrak with Chaos Lord on it. I don't know. That seems nuts for Warcry sized games, like that thing smashing around. But that would make that start collecting box very appealing to me.
Yeah, definitely. And they did the battle tomes for the different factions. They did introduce 4 more Warcry box sets, or miniature box sets, warbands. So they're going to release a box set with the Khainite Shadowstalkers, one for Signs of the Flame, but also a Legions of Nagash and Sylvaneth. They look like really good mixes of models, too. They would be great ways to get into those warbands.
Yeah, I don't know if we have prices for these, but the Sylvaneth in particular is a very good value. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's because some of those components are a bit overpriced, but still great value. Still, and there's some of my favorite Sylvaneth sculpts, the Kurnoth Hunters and the Tree Revenants.
Yep.
I've been itching to get into Sylvaneth for a long time. I don't think it's the right time given my painting queue, but one day. Right. I'm an old Fantasy Battle Wood Elf player, and so I think the Call of the Forest sings to me sometimes.
It's still strong. At least you get to help your friend put together a Sylvaneth warband. That was good.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I did get to paint up those Fight Revenants to not his painting stabward, but an amazing. What do they say? An amazing simulation.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What else is coming? What do we know about?
The Tome of Champions 2020.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about this last episode. They were like, they better put up or shut up with Tome of Champions 2020. We're running out of time.
Yeah. And
just in time.
Article November 30th. They released some little snippets of what's going to be included in the Tome of Champions 2020. Paven, you want to run us through those?
Yes. So we're going to get new quests. Sorry, I'm stalling while I scroll to the right place. It seems like they're saying they're rebalancing the glory point system. I don't know what that means. They did a pretty good, I guess, rewrite of when you get glory when in Tome of Champions 2019 that I thought was just like a great improvement on the game. It sounds like maybe they're going to take another pass at that. I don't know what else could that be.
Maybe different ways to add glory. So you could perhaps, how many objectives you might have captured. So maybe there's a gradient in terms of not just win, lose, but somewhere in between.
Interesting. I'll take it. Expanded rules for open play, pit fights, multiplayer games. Sounds like there's rules for fighting a Mega Gargant in there.
Yes.
We predicted would be in a White Dwarf, but it's getting the full Tome of Champions treatment. Do you have a Mega Gargant?
I do not. No, I don't. But we know
Paul
does.
We should borrow Paul's. Yeah, but the Spider King. That would be super fun to fight the Spider King.
Definitely.
Expanded rules for narrative play, and so this is particular. This is I think we both globbed onto this.
Oh yeah.
A detailed background on Soloth Core, the Silent City, and rules for playing a campaign within its long abandoned streets. New battle plans, Fated Quest, and a Trial of Champions campaign specific to this area. I like everything in that section. I like all of it.
Yes.
What is exciting you about this in particular?
I think this is all the city rules that we were talking about in our last episode, no less. This sounds like very Mordheim-ish, at least on the surface.
Yeah.
Or maybe it could easily be modified to do some of those things that we were hoping for.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, I'm so like, is it gonna? What is it? How is it gonna be thematically? The Silent City, is that more of like a deathly vibe?
Right.
Where is it? Is it in? Because all of the landmarks, and we'll talk about this, like in Warcry, have been in the Bloodwind spoil, and the Silent City isn't on any of our maps. And I know this because I just spent the weekend looking at all the maps. So this is going to be a new place within the Bloodwind spoil. I mean, we don't see the whole slice in that map, so it could be there. Are they just going to put it? Is it like off the edge of the map? Is it on the map and we didn't know about it? Is it underground? Is there going to be like how granular is it going to get? Like how because I want it crunchy as hell.
Yeah. Just say they have a Trial of Champions campaign, so it could be crunchier because they're introducing it specifically for that setting.
Yeah, what is like a different, like, is it going to be like a different flavor on all those tables, or are they going to be like those tables plus more tables?
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think of the name Soroth Core, and I was like, I'm not sure that's set in the 8 points, but it could be. I mean, there are lots of different names. But yeah, so I'll be extremely interested as we hear more coming along in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. I am definitely happy they're giving us a new place.
Yeah.
I think that's looking let's expand it. Let's go to new places. I like looking at old places sometimes. There's got to be a good mix of new. And I'm like very excited about this new city. Why is it so quiet? It's not going to be quiet for long when we get up in there and start chopping heads off and stuff.
Right. One of the things I thought was interesting too is, the snippet they gave us about rules updates is they talk about updates to reinforcements and the use of consumable items. So I'm really excited about that because I think at this point, consumable items, it takes an action to use. So a lot of people don't use them. So I'm hoping that they revise that somehow. So maybe it's a free action or maybe it's an ability or something.
Good call out. Yes, because I saw that was happening. I'm like, finally. Because there are some in there that are almost never worth using.
Yeah.
Because it's it's never worth giving up the other action. The other action is just better.
Right.
And so I'm really happy they're changing that. I hope maybe they're making it harder. Maybe it's 2 actions to use the consumable item.
I can't imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have one action to undo the lid and the other to drink it. So that's really great, as well as updates to reinforcements. I wonder, having played 2 Catacombs games, I really like the pacing of it. It felt more consistent, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, you weren't just out of the game because everything was too far away, which was kind of a bad feel that would happen sometimes in above ground games, especially if you didn't have like squig hoppers or another high movement thing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if they're gonna. I'm really curious what these updates to reinforcements are. They going to bring some of the Catacombs rooms into baseline above ground Warcry? Are they doing something else? Are they going to give you more control? I don't know.
It definitely piqued my interest though. Yeah, so and the Triumph and Treachery pit fight sounds really interesting. I saw somewhere else they introduced multiplayer games for 3 to 6 people instead of 2 to 4. With that, so that should be a lot of fun for when we get campaigns and leagues going again. But somebody had mentioned, I think on Twitter or something, about the rules for Triumph and Treachery. They talked about ways to have kind of a pit fighter campaign with up to 3 models per person, in a warband. Mm-hmm. So like really small individual model types of games. So there are a lot of interesting things they're introducing here, I think.
Yes, can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Is that it? I think that's it. Is there anything else you want to say any other visions you were having?
No. My visions are coalescing into this. It's going to be a really exciting December.
All right. You want to take us into the next section?
Definitely. So we'll move into the Circle of Paint Challenge, the tale of 2 warbands. And here, with Paven and I talk about our progress on our warbands and the painting and basing. We've got a little bit about that in the hobby section. I don't have anything else to add, but Paven, did you have anything else you wanted to mention about your warband here?
I wanted to ask you a question, Josh.
All right.
We're on episode 5.
Yes.
We usually do 8 episodes a season.
Correct.
Are you feeling the heat from the Circle of Paint?
I am. Because, I got my first test model kind of finished up, and I looked at it and I was like, eh. so,
Okay.
so I think I've got a ways to go. And but yeah, I'm feeling the heat. I'm hoping 6 weeks is enough.
Okay,
but I'm gonna try it with some airbrushing
because this was a little bit ill-defined of a challenge. Besides, you paint a warband, I think, but I think you could add just as many additional elements as you want, as is your artistic prerogative. What is your goal for submission?
Well, and actually, thinking about that too, is we started a little later in the warbands because we didn't have the box set yet. So about to think about that. So my ideal state for submission was to have all the models painted, at least a 1,000 point warband, and have at least a small, not really a diorama, but have maybe like the catacombs board, or at least have some of the doors or walls, or maybe the 3-dimensional version built up and have them kind of on there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that would be kind of cool.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I think 1,000 points is the floor. Painted up 1,000 points. I think that sounds good to me. I don't know if I want to commit to anything else. I think I'll just commit to that and then under promise and over deliver, hopefully.
Exactly. I said ideal state.
Here, I will baseline, because I actually, I just need to base those guys and then I got 1,000 points. So that's not too bad. I want to at least add the Ogroid to that. And then anything else is bonus. Terrain is cool. Additional models is very cool. We'll see.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And if we have to go to overtime, we'll go to overtime. It's not our first overtime.
I agree. Yeah, we'll play it by ear. I'm glad you're flexible on that.
I want to hammer you too hard yet.
Right, we want to give people something to speculate and drool over and compare. So make sure at least it's a quality entry. So with that, we'll take a short break and then we'll come back for our victory condition.
Season 3 is here, and we're excited to bring you more Dogs of Warcry. We'll be discussing new warbands, the starter box Catacombs, our ongoing games and narrative play, and keeping you up to date on our Circle of Paint challenge. Thank you for the encouragement, and we hope you enjoy this episode of Dogs of Warcry. Please share your ideas and feedback with us as we travel the 8 points together.
Welcome back. Our victory condition this episode is to discuss some of the unique stories, lore, and secrets mentioned in the various Warcry rulebooks. Additionally, we'll share some of our thoughts on how these could be used for larger narrative events or campaigns. So we'll start with Paven, and he's got 3 generic ideas, concepts he's going to go through, and we're going to alternate back and forth with sharing some of these secrets from Warcry. With Paven, what is your first secret?
Generic?
Well,
these are the
generic.
tastiest, spiciest takes out there, Josh.
That's true.
All right. I'll just have to prove it to you. Okay. All right. My first place I want to talk about is Lost Valorum. Let me tell you a little bit about Lost Valorum. It first appears in the core book, and the description in the book is buried ruins of a city of order that was sacked during the Age of Chaos, destroyed by molten rock cast by chaos sorcerers. This city, the 8 points used to be the all points, and so kind of a utopia. And what happened was during Archon's invasion, he had a number of chaos sorcerers all gather together and kind of bury the city in lava and ash. It kind of gives me a Pompeii vibe. And this attack and atrocity was so terrible, what it did was it trapped the inhabitants and their spirits in kind of a state of final panic and terror. So the ruins of the city are buried and then full of ghosts that are kind of constantly reliving the end of their city and of their lives. It's really horrible. So it is a city that used to be an order that is in the 8 points, which is the Chaos Land, as we've talked about. But it does have a death tilt, sad and dark and tragic kind of end to it. So that's the setting. Very cool. I think I first got excited when I was reading the Catacombs book, and it referenced, it says the Maw is not the only horrible place in the 8 points. There's also Lost Valorum, which has its own dangers, and what does it literally say? It is shrouded by death. The ruins of Lost Valorum stretch far beneath the surface in a no less lethal of a battleground. So it got me started thinking of like other places you could take your dungeon battles. And we have a Hall of Valorum board that it comes in the Catacombs board pack. So one of the 4 different places you can that are represented by 2 of those boards. 2 boards each have a side, and one of those sides is the Halls of Valorum, which I imagine takes place here in Lost Valorum.
Yes.
So I thought it was cool that like this place that was mentioned in the core book is also like being more fleshed out as time goes on, and that's kind of the theme of this whole victory condition, which is, you know, the little places that start as like dots on the map that they get slowly expanded into more fleshed out settings. And in this place, one more place that comes up is in the quest, the Bells of Lost Valorum, which is a night haunt quest from the core book as well. And so what's happening here is the night haunt know about all of these spirits and these the dead forces of order that are in Valorum, kind of trapped there in their state of final panic. And you know, the dead belong to Nagash. And so the Night Haunt, a warband's job is to go there and then to lead a procession of specters out of Lost Valorum and then into the open arms of Dad Nagash. And so that's the quest you partake on. I don't know. I guess we could do a little bit of spoilers for that quest. And so you get there, and one of the things you're trying to do is silence the bells, because the warning bells of the catastrophe still ring in Lost Valorum. And so your job is to silence those bells, because they're one of the things that tie those ghosts to that place is this final crisis. And so you silence those bells, and then you can lead your flock back to Nagashazar or Shayesh or wherever you're going. Although I imagine that's not the end of Lost Valorum, and I imagine there's still going to be ghosts there. But so you take your little piece out. It also has a really cool artifact, but it gives your leader, or gives whoever you want to give it to, a bell. And I think it's a bell that you can use as an action, and it does damage. It either does targeted damage or like AoE damage in an area. So you can ring that bell as an action. So very cool. Draws the thread straight through. That's it. That's all I have on Lost Valorum. I hope we hear more. I was thinking that could be a place we go to later, but it sounds like we're going to... Oh, I already forgot the name. Solath Core.
Right.
Yeah, next.
Well, based on the information we do have, how do you think we could build that into a larger narrative or campaign?
You could just say your games are in Lost Valorum, or the Halls of Valorum, or Lost Valorum, and you could just play different dungeon games there. Use that board side. Use the other boards too. I don't think you should be held back. But like that is probably the easiest way to do it. And your above ground games, they can take place anywhere. Your above ground games can take place anywhere. So you can say they take place on the outskirts or part of the buried city, or you're just taking place in this realm. And you can also theme your games more towards the undead or the forces of death. So, for example, you could say as a house rule, instead of using chaotic beasts, you could always use restless dead. Yeah. They have rules for using them as wandering monsters. You could just use all of those. Or you could specifically, I don't know, just have the whole campaign be about why you could have your campaign group talk about like why they're there, what they're trying to accomplish, and do something a little bit more custom with their campaigns. Or just like take the campaigns out of the book and then twist them slightly so they're not, going to the fighting pits, but they're going to like, the underground arenas of order that were lost when Valorum was buried.
I like those ideas.
Great question.
Yeah, there's even some challenge battles too where you're going to a crypt and you fight spirits, and that would be perfectly take place here. Yeah, so lots of different ways to add that. Awesome, thank you. I think the first secret I'm going to touch on is House of Davenok. And we're first introduced to this house in the Monsters and Mercenaries Fated Quest. And it talks about House Davenok as being a powerful house during the Age of Myth, obviously during the All Points when it was held by order. Solomora Davenok died. It was a powerful heir, or the powerful head of the household. And he had 2 children, one a wizard and one a fighter. And he didn't declare an heir, so his 2 children went to war, and both of them ended up dying as a result of the battles. And so no one inherited the house. In this particular quest in Monsters and Mercenaries, it's a fated quest. You are looking for the crown of Davenok, and it's this crown which is iconic and has been floating around the 8 points, and you just want it for some reason. Maybe you've heard about it being powerful, or maybe it just really looks cool, shiny. They give a nice description of it, but you want it from the other warbands that have it and running around. And the interesting thing, and again, there'll be a little bit of spoilers here. The interesting thing about this quest is once you retrieve it, it kind of pulls you towards a crypt where both of the children have been interred, and they're laid side by side, and there's a pedestal between them on which the crown used to rest. And their souls have been bound to the crypts so they could not fight each other in the afterlife. And you have to choose honor or glory. You must choose one of the children to give the crown to. And depending on your results, determines whether, what reward you get at the end of that quest. So that's our first introduction to it. And as later in Tome of Champions, the Disciples of Tzeentch quest, we hear this name again. It's called the Davenok Conspiracy. And in this particular quest, Raelian Davenok is known as the last descendant, seeks to reclaim his family's holdings and access the sealed vault. And your warband is helping him for your own individual purposes. Again, it's a series of battles as you work your way towards his old holdings. And then once you succeed in reaching it with him, he has to use his blood to open the vault. And at that point, you can choose honor or glory, whether you want to continue to help him or seek the treasures for yourself. These two stories are really interesting, where they kind of built upon this famous house from the Age of Myth, and still has a role to play in the 8 points, where the last living heir is here in the 8 points, hundreds of thousands of years later, and still partaking in this quest to redeem his house or find his lost family heirlooms. So I thought it was a really long-lived story, and because it's two different quests. One is a quest for Disciples of Tzeentch, but just the way the quest was structured, it could be any warband potentially helping him on his quest to find his lost home and the family vault. Is you could easily do the initial quest, and then once you get there, you hear about the crown. Maybe you're working with Raelian Davenok again to go retrieve the crown and learn about the family and reach the crypt. But since it takes place in the crypt, you can easily incorporate a challenge battle with the spirits. I think there are different ways you can kind of twist this and build upon the stories. That, maybe House Davenok had holdings in several different cities in the 8 points, and you can go explore those for ancient ruins and information. And, maybe how did the house become powerful? Were they trading in magical artifacts, or was it rare metals? And you can use those ideas to kind of frame, what your goals are. Maybe your iron golems and you're seeking out rare metals that this house had in the vault. So I think it'd be fun to kind of twist the campaign in terms of having one quest follow another as you continue to find secrets out about this particular family. Did you have any other thoughts, Payton?
This is the one that made me the Davenok family and myth is the one that made me thought about this show theme or victory condition, because I kept getting a new book a few months later. I'm like, the Davenok are back, and I'm like, what is going on? And I was curious to categorize it and catalog every time we heard them and see if we could see a greater tapestry.
Yep.
Where do you think this one, if this one gets further publication, where do you think this one goes?
That's a hard question because we deal with his last descendant in one of the quests, and
the double last descendant.
Right. Yeah. So if we do hear about it, maybe in the Soroth core, they'll have a mansion or a ruin. Maybe they had a business or something that pops up there, and maybe there's an artifact by their name floating around.
That's
cool. Next, all right. So what's your next secret that you would like to share with us, Payton?
The next, I don't know if this is a secret, but I wanted to talk about an area that gets a lot of screen time, or at least some screen time, and that is the Fighting Pits of Karngrad. Fighting Pits of Karngrad are a place of violence and death. They're as bad as a gladiatorial arena in the 8 points would be. Is kind of how the Fighting Pits are. Karngrad being the biggest settlement inside the Bloodwind spoil. So most people, I think, that are in the fighting pits like die quickly and unmourned and unremembered. However, those that are strong of arm and quick of wit and maybe a little lucky can find glory here. So there's a number of quests that all take place here, and these aren't the only fighting pits that are in the 8 points. There's a number of kind of lesser, minor leagues, I think, around the Bloodwind spoil, but I think these are the primo one. So I'll talk about a couple of quests and a couple of war bands that participate in these fighting pits. And they're cool quests. They feel a little different. They're not like go get this sword or kill this guy. It is like, stay in this one place and just like battle it out in the arena and become the new champ. So I'll start kicking off with the first one, and this is from the core book. And these are the spider tyrants, being gladiators. And they're kind of like, it's when like a basketball player goes this is the field of me, from the NBA, they get a little old and then they go and play in Europe for a while. And it kind of feels like this. Like the Spire Tyrants were like kicking butt in the Varanspire fighting pits, and then they go into this regional one. But that's kind of what they do. They're going out, they're looking for glory. And during this quest, they kill like 2 of their patrons. So they're not just about like kicking butt in the pit, but they're also just saying like, don't mess with us. Like we'll pick you up on and off the court. But that's a cool one to give Spire Tyrants a really bad boy reputation. The next one is that one was called Making Your Name. The next one is Lords of the Arena. And this is just traveling the circuits, making your renown. This isn't specific to Spire Tyrants. This is a fated quest, so anybody can do this. It's for monsters and mercenaries. And at the end of it, fight a large beast. And you can, for honor or glory, you can either kill the beast or let it free and have it just rampage in the stands. So like, it's not safe to be in the fighting pits. It's not safe to it's not safe to like patronize the fighting pits. It's not safe to even be it's not safe to be in the stands either. Very, very dangerous place. So that's a cool one. And then the last one is another fated crest from Throne of Champions, Defending Your Crown. So you can almost play these in order. Making Your Name, Lord of the Arena, and then Defending Your Crown. Trying to go for the three-peat. And this is another fated quest. And this one, there's another rival gladiator rising in the ranks. And you're like, he's, it's not, in Rocky 2, it's still Apollo Creed. But in Rocky 3, it's Mr. T. But what's his character name? Josh, can you help me out?
Oh, I don't know his name off the top of my head.
Oh, come on. Who does
so he's
fight?
The boxer Clubber Lang.
Clubber Lang. How did you way beat me on the James Clubber Lang. Yeah, okay. So it's like you're Rocky, and because this is not the third quest, and you're going up against James Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T, and you have to you fight a bunch of battles and you work your way up to fighting the rival gladiator, and there's like a demon kind of acting as a spoiler. So you're like, your final choice is like, do you like the demon is helping your rival? Like, do you accept the demon's aid or do you like not? So that's like a cool kind of very Warhammer, very chaos choice to make, and you get cool perks after that one too.
Awesome.
But yeah, those are the fighting pits. Yeah, I thought, I was doing the research, and this isn't one that jumped to mind, but I was like, I was surprised the number of quests that all take place like in kind of the same area of Karngrad. Like, all quests have a little map associated with them. Mm-hmm. I think there was like a number of them, like all in the fighting pits, all in Karngrad. I think most of them or all of them had at least one mission where it's just like an arena. So you put all the terrain around the edge, and then there's like a big dirt pitch in the middle where you just gotta like club it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, there's a bunch of other quests that take place with, dealing with the House of Talons in Karngrad as well. So you could definitely do a city narrative campaign where you're in the fighting pits, or you're working with House of Talons, or you're trying to, maybe gangs of Karngrad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's certainly a tie-in with the White Dwarf last year, where they had some pit fighting rules and quests that you could do. You can totally incorporate that in this sort of quest narrative too.
Forgot about that one. I forgot about it. I still don't remember it, but it sounds cool. What White Dwarf was that? Oh, I don't have my White Dwarfs anymore.
September of 2019.
September 2019. All right, I'll see if I can look at those rules. Would be cool looking again.
Yeah.
All right, what's your next one, Josh? Hit me with it.
The next one I'm going to cover is, surprise, surprise, Varanthax's Maw. Yes, it was on the map the whole time. And we forgot about it. But yes, it's an enormous volcanic forge complex built into the skeleton of a drake. It was always on the map, and now with Catacombs, we got a lot more information and delved even deeper into it. But what was I thought was exciting for me is going back looking through the quests is that 2 of the warbands have quests that lead from various parts of the Bloodwind spoil to Varanthax's Maw, and I thought, well, this is a great way to do an above ground quest that leads directly into Catacombs material, and I'll kind of go through those quests now. The first one is the Iron Golems conquer the forge, and their goal is to seek a great forge to make weapons for Archaon. And their final convergence takes place in the forge, where they have to take it over from a rival, and then they end up getting the rival's specially made weapon and have a forge within the mountain. The Signs of the Flame quest is called Tide of Fire, and they seek to drown the world in flames. And the way they do this is by gathering materials and making their way to the Maw, which is the volcano that's around here, and causing it to erupt. So I'm not sure if that makes Archaon happy or not, considering he's got a lot of resources there. But I thought it was a really amazing quest where they go there and then make this volcano erupt. But I thought both of these warbands had great narratives for leading you to Varanthax's Maw, and from there you can pick up one of the Catacombs quests and continue to play into the Catacombs and around it. And I think at least the Iron Golems quest, searching for a forge, could easily be tweaked for another particular warband. Maybe they're seeking a specific artifact or something that was made in a forge in Varanthax's Maw. Mm-hmm. But definitely easy tie-ins into Catacombs games, and also, as we talked about last episode, is the whole Broken Realms in Morathi and all the events that are taking place around Varanthax's Maw as well. You can incorporate a lot of those elements in with these particular quests and the Catacombs games that follow up.
Yeah, I thought it was funny rereading this one because I read that Iron Golems quest, and it's like at the end of it, you are now the undisputed master of Varanthax's Maw. I was like, are you really?
Yeah.
Like,
that one forge,
guys.
that one anvil.
Yeah, you got this giant, nation-sized complex of tunnels. But I like to think that as like embellishment by the warband. It's like, we took this one house. We're in charge now, and there's
right.
Chaos Lords in charge of Doom Forts. That I don't think an Iron Golem leader. But I think it's still cool that we've been in the Maw. We've been in the Maw since day one.
Right, we didn't even realize it. That was awesome. Yeah. There's a lot of other, little regions like the Blood Lake Basin where quests take place, and I thought that was, as I was rereading a lot of the quests, I was like, oh, that's really cool, where they actually lead to some of these places on the map, so it kind of leads into your next thematic area, I think. Yes,
all quests, I think, at least in the core book, take place within a section of the Bloodwind spoil map. It just depends on how zoomed in they are. Some of them have very little landmarks except for a tiny river. Mm-hmm. So you don't know where those are. But Blood Lake Basin, the Kardeb Ash Waste, Soulflare Desert. These are all places that
Gallows Spire.
And you never know when you're going to get a full expansion based on one of these dots. Although Varanthax's Maw was in all caps and got a little description, which is where, I don't know, the most important ones.
I don't know. They all have all caps and descriptions here. So.
Okay. So there's 5 of them, or 6 of them, or 7 of them, and then some of them are just the Tower of Xanacus. We don't have any other information about. But one of those that gets to the description is called the Screaming Coil, and this is an ancient soul engine corrupted by worshippers of the Dark Prince. So I don't know what the Soul Engine did before the Dark Prince got to it, but it seems to be some sort of a mechanical technological device that attracts or holds or does something with souls. I don't know if the engine means it's powered by souls or it has some sort of soul-related property. It's probably powered by souls. And then it does horrible things. And then what is cool about the Screaming Coil is not only its gross evocative kind of construction, is that so many different factions are attracted to it and then try to use it for their purposes. So I'll go through a few of those there. The first one is called, the first quest is a Song of Suffering. It's in the core brew book, and the Unmade are fighting their way to the Screaming Coil because they want to use it to project pain just across the 8 points. And that's what they do. They fight their way to it. They pump it up with souls. I forget what the exact mechanisms they use to make it work, but they accomplish it, and then it shoots out waves of intense pain, which, what we know about the Unmade, they love it. They're like, oh, this is great. This is the good stuff. And then everybody else is like doubled over, clawing their eyes out because of what this. And then the Soul Engine spends itself. The next group to go to it, and this is also in the core book, is the Idna Thiefkin. And they don't want to use it. They just know there's a bunch of souls in it. So they also fight their way to the coil, and they just suck out they just like don't want to turn it on. They just suck out the gas. They siphon out the gas of the engine, and just, put it in their lure lights and their different, soul bags that Idna use, and are going to use it for their own, not necessarily nice purposes, but they're going to use the souls. And a line in there at the end of the campaign is like, the souls like willingly get out of the soul engine. They're like, thank God, anywhere is better than being in this Slaaneshi engine of torture. That's cool. It's also interesting, the close tie between an Elven faction and a Slaaneshi device, because the elves are so closely tied to Slaanesh. Because the Idneth themselves were once pulled out of a Slaaneshi object, being Slaanesh himself, and now they are kind of repeating that cycle. So that one's a cool one. And the last one, in Tome of Champions, the Hedonites of Slaanesh have a quest where they go to the Soul Engine, and they pump it up, and they send out waves of like mania and madness. So a little bit more, like less kind of pure pain, but more just like crazy insanity. And they want like, war bands are turning on their brothers and on their friends, and they're just like in a kind of a whirlwind of excess and destruction and violence.
Yeah.
And so this is cool. It's got a lot of people all fighting over it. And I think this is like kind of how I think about the 8 points and a lot of these things. Like, you might like win a battle and you might conquer something, but somebody else is going to conquer it, like eventually come after you and beat you. And, the 8 points is a chaos personified almost. Like it's like they're always going to be changed. There's never going to be stability. You're never going to like win a lasting happy ending. You're just going to kill the last guy until the next guy kills you. And so I think that's the way I look at the Soul Engine. It's like somebody goes and takes it over and uses it. Then the next person comes. And kind of like a never-ending cycle of taking on these chaotic artifacts.
Yeah, right, exactly. The continued flux of ownership throughout the the Bloodwind spoil and the 8 points in general.
Oh, yeah, and I forgot part of my homework was how you can use it in games. And so here's my idea off the dome. Maybe a multiplayer battle that takes place at the Screaming Coil, where the forces of chaos or the bad guys are having some kind of soul-related ritual that they're trying to get off with the Soul Engine, and the attackers are trying to interrupt it. So you have like the Soul Engine in the middle, and then you have this big battle, and then maybe for every person that dies, they get sucked into the Soul Engine, and it like powers up, and different effects are happening, like waves of despair or pain are going out depending on a dice roll. Mm-hmm. And so like the game could like increase in stakes as it goes on and become more deadly or more powerful.
Yeah.
And that could be a cool, like maybe capstone to a campaign, or just like a really fun Saturday multiplayer Smash Fest.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like that idea a lot. You can incorporate some of the dangerous traps from Catacombs where maybe you roll a 1 and, this is the effect that's happening, and everybody takes damage or something like that. Yeah, mm-hmm. So that'd be fun. And even incorporate Night Haunt to escape souls when they start attacking you as wandering monsters. And
like, you like roll a dice on the table, and like on a 1, like everybody takes die 6 damage. On a 2, on a 3 up, or on a 1 or a 2, everybody rolls a dice and they activate. And on a 1 or 2, they're too racked with pain to move.
Right.
And a 3, a bunch of skeletons come out of the ground and are wandering monsters, or maybe not skeletons, ghosts. Ghosts are more disembodied. Yeah, it's all good ideas. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like it. Maybe we'll kick off the next campaign with that.
Yeah, one day. Spring,
right.
hopefully spring.
Exactly. Oh, no, I'll keep my fingers crossed. All right, so my last area of interest is kind of a generic category. That's why I kind of said it in the beginning, where it's talking about missions or quests that reference other Games Workshop games, or a unique tie-in where there's a quest and a challenge battle tied together. So the first one I'll kind of talk about is this a character called Mithon Valagar. And Mithon Valagar was a very powerful Amethyst Archmage who even fought alongside Sigmar in the early days of in the Age of Myth. He eventually succumbed to his lust for power and betrayed Sigmar to Nagash for arcane knowledge, and wrote several very powerful tomes, which takes place in Warcry here. The Legion of Nagash quest is to seek out this lost tome and return it to Archon the Black. So this is interesting because Volgar has ties in Age of Sigmar and also some recent publications. In Age of Sigmar, there's an endless spell called the Shards of Valagar. These floating obsidian pyramids, which can cause various effects on the field of battle. But just kind of illustrating how powerful he was in the ways of necromancy and magic. But there was also a recent book called Thieves' Paradise, written by Nick Horth, and the Mortal Realms crew actually did a book review for this. It's really interesting because one of these tomes of Valagar takes place in this book, and there's a struggle between forces of Shaiish and a necromancer, and some agents in the Order of Azir, which is essentially witch hunters, and they're both vying for this tome. And it's very powerful, and Archon wants to get it back. And so you could almost tie in a story where the Legion of Nagash quest takes place, maybe, and then other warbands interfere, and the tome gets lost, it gets stolen, and then you're doing quests outside of the 8 points into Shaiish, where now you're running with the book, and there are other forces coming after you to try and steal it for Archon the Black or for other factions because it's so powerful. So I thought it was interesting because it already has a kind of a narrative story loop where you don't know if the Warcry quest came first or if the Thieves to Paradise storyline came first. But you could definitely develop a series of quests or a narrative around that, which maybe takes you outside of the 8 points or into the 8 points, depending on which way you went. The other...
wait, Josh, that is quite a deep cut, and I'm here for it. This is great. This is all news to me. This is so cool. I definitely haven't read that book. Yeah, Mithon Valagar the Betrayer. Dope. All right, keep going. Hit me with more of these spicy tidbits.
All right. So the next one's not as interesting in terms of like in depth across the Age of Sigmar range, but
all right. Never mind then. No, I'm sorry. Keep going.
But it does tie into some very rich lore from Warhammer Underworlds. We have 2 quests which kind of delve into certain areas of Warhammer Underworlds. First one takes place in the Tome of Champions Fated quest, calling Fulfilling One's Oath. And your warband is helping another warband, an ally, who wishes to travel to Gur, to a place of power. And you help them throughout the series of quests find a book that describes what this place of power is. And it's a place called Beastgrave. And Beastgrave in Warhammer Underworlds is a sentient mountain that is cursed and hunkers for souls, I guess, in your warbands and people who have entered the Beastgrave don't typically leave. They die and they come back and they continue fighting, they continue warring for each other. It's interesting, in this particular quest, you have to choose, again, honor or glory, and either decide to help your ally or deceive him and send him to Beastgrave because it's not a good place. So another Warhammer Underworlds tie-in in the same book, Tome of Champions, was the fated quest, The Haunting of Aska Peak. And this particular place, it mentions it being a strategic pass in the Fangs, I think it is. But you're there to figure out what the source of the haunting is and take control of the pass, because then you would have strategic dominance of the area. And in the course of the quests, and here's a spoiler, you find the source of the haunting is a spirit of an ancient priestess, Alathira, who's trapped in a shade glass mirror. She trapped herself in it on purpose to escape Age of Chaos and is trapped, and she asks you to help free her so that she can roam the world again in spirit form, essentially. And this ties in to Shadespire, which is the first release of Warhammer Underworlds. And Shade Glass comes from Shadespire, and it was traded and distributed widely during the Age of Myth across the realms. So I thought that was really interesting, that they kind of nodding to some other games, but tying the lore in, kind of like they did with the Broken Realms Morathi, where they're tying the Age of Sigmar narrative in with Warcry. Now we're tying in bits of Warhammer Underworlds with Warcry and introducing items and artifacts that are related to that. And again, it leads you to possibilities of creating a narrative campaign in Shadespire, perhaps using Warcry rules, or maybe you're traveling from one and maybe you pass through the mirror and you find yourself trapped, and then you have a whole narrative campaign in Shadespire. Or Beastgrave, because Beastgrave is getting a next expansion, Dire Chasm, so it'll be interesting to see if we get additional hints of narratively of what's going on there and how it ties into Warcry. Did you have any, I know you played Warhammer Underworlds, did you have any thoughts on how to expand this area, perhaps?
Yeah, there's no reason why a Warcry campaign can't take place in either of those locations. They're pretty fleshed out locations at this point, and I believe that Shadespire, or like the former ruins of Shadespire, are not, because Shadespire is in Ulgish, the hidden gloaming between the realms of light and shadow, but there is like kind of the place around Shadespire before it got torn out is still like a city, because Nagash cursed the city.
Right.
And I believe that area was the place of the first rules of Warhammer Skirmish, which may be a spiritual predecessor to Warcry, although
Correct.
Warhammer Skirmish is still technically a different system.
Yeah.
So any of these places are cool. You could even, so I wouldn't use Underworld's boards because those are specific to like the mechanics of that game, but all of the Underworld's terrain is really cool.
Mm-hmm. You could even use the boards. You wouldn't use the hexes per se, but just for the imagery, yeah. Because we have rules for catacombs where you just move along the 2D boards and it would probably work.
I could probably do this at home, but do you have any idea how the Underworld boards match up size-wise to the Warcry boards?
I don't. No, you'd probably need like 4 or 5 of them, and depending on what size they are, it may or may not integrate well. But but maybe you have one as a room that you move into or something like that. Incorporate it that way. I thought it was an interesting, tie-ins and adding a little bit of flavor throughout the Warcry world. And the last one I have is all within the Tome of Champions book. But I thought it was interesting because you could easily link it as a story, or I guess a narrative campaign. It starts with a fated quest called the Ghoul Hunt, where you have to travel to Splinterbone's manse. And he's a flesh-eater court. Some people, they think they're not really dead and they're noble and whatnot. But one of your allies' sister has traveled here. It was captured. And it's interesting because once you get there, you find out that she doesn't want to leave. So she wants to stay. And as part of the quest line, you have to decide whether you let her stay or whether you'll side with your ally and force her to finish her off. So you're fighting against the war bands to potentially help your ally or betray them. This kind of segues into a challenge battle that's found in the book called Lord Splinterbone's Feast. And at this particular challenge battle, your warband is in the manse, in the court of Lord Splinterbone, and he's having a feast. Of course, not necessarily one you want to actually partake of, but you know that he has lots of treasure without the manse from all those other people that have been eaten. And so you're trying to partake of the feast, but send parts of your warband out to search for treasure at the same time. And it's funny because they include a Warcry profile card for Lord Splinterbone in case he catches you. Then you have to fight him as part of the challenge battle. So I thought it would be a great way to have a narrative tie-in where either you've encountered the Lord Splinterbone as part of the challenge battle, and then you find out your ally's sister has traveled there, or vice versa, where you've been there, you've had to fight, depending on if you sided with them or against them. Maybe that changes how you do the challenge battle, and then determines what happens from there. So,
Yeah, the Splinterborn Feast is a cool challenge battle because they have that little mini game you're playing while you're trying to put the treasure to try to like be respectful of the polite manners of this cannibal feast and not rouse the anger of the region. Who will it will tear you apart and eat you.
Definitely. I think the unique challenge battle where we haven't seen that kind of mechanic before. It was really interesting. Well, that kind of ties up the three areas of this particular subject. I thought with different tie-ins and interesting interlinkings. I think there are a lot of different other quests which travel to different points of the 8 points, and kind of I think there's even like in Blood Lake Basin, there's a couple warbands that travel to that location, and so I think there are also other narrative elements that you can use to tie in to get these sort of themes. But these were certainly the strongest ones that stood out to me. Any other thoughts on these choices or any of the other books?
No, I mean these certainly weren't. Yeah, I agree. These certainly weren't the only ones we could talk about. I'm excited to see what comes out. Having just done this review of everything, I think I'm going to be very primed to read through those new Grand Alliance books and Tome of Champions for other callouts because I know they like to connect, like tell us new things, give us more information, connect to other ones. Right. It'll be interesting to see how that gets fleshed out. I'm also curious to see if we go beyond the Bloodwind spoil. Suspect eventually, and on any timeline long enough, we will go beyond that slice, but I wonder how much more detail we're going to get, where else, like what other locations get like a deep or magnifying glass, or just a few other lines. I'll take, a few lines here and there.
And there's definitely rereading through the core book and the quests and everything. There's lots of little tidbits where you could easily, it talks about the Fangs being a mountain range with labyrinthine corridors and passages. Definitely screams catacombs types games. So it reminded me that there's a lot of interesting places here. Like Lost Valorum, where you could continue to use regular rules and incorporate catacombs really easily. Certainly get the imagination primed.
Yeah, and I haven't previously read every quest that has come out in every book. I read the quests that I'm interested in the warbands, but I think now that I'm as invested with the entire setting, I'm just when these books come out, I'm going to read every quest. Yeah. And try to attach it like, oh, this takes place in the Fangs. Like, oh, what else do we know? Like that, or this is like Forlorn Hope is where we end up, or like, oh, another pit fighting one, or another Karngrab fighting pits one. Oh, this one's about losing and then climbing back to the top. Right. So
maybe we'll have to do a follow-up session of like, oh, some new topics related to the initial topics.
I mean, we're about to get 5 books about Warcry, which is more than the number of books I have now.
No, it's gonna be lots of new lore, I think.
Yeah, we'll see what gets. Yeah, I'm curious to see how much new stuff we get. All right. That's enough about the future. Let's move on to the present. Josh, do you have some listener questions for us?
We have a lot of listener questions, which thank you everybody who submitted questions. And again, for anybody who would like to, you can go to the Mortal Realms /Discord and submit questions there in the Warcry area, or shoot us an email at dogsofwarcry@gmail or at dogsofwarcry at Twitter. So please, shoot us any questions you may have that you'd like to hear about. So our first question is from PJ Shard, is Paul, part of the Mortal Realms crew. The question is, now that we have our first Order warband, do you think that every warband still has distortions of Chaos Gods written to their background, or are the Shadow Stalkers pure Order? So I think here he's, we don't have necessarily just one Order warband. So I think here he's talking about what are the implications of the Khainite Shadow Stalkers with the fallout from Broken Realms Marathi? Are they still going to be Order warband, or do they have a tie-in with something different besides just Chaos? What do you think, Paven?
So I'm going to interpret this question to mean, like, are they all going to be written into the 8-point setting? Because I don't necessarily think the Shadow Stalkers are distorted by Chaos, but I think they have a very specific purpose for being in the 8 points, which is as agents of Marathi to extend her influence and, even more specifically, do reconnaissance around Fahrenheit. I think, at least in the near future, all warbands will be there will be a reason why they are in the 8 points specifically. They won't just be like, oh, this is, this is, just any kind of troop out of Hammerhall. This is like, the demon killers of the Tempest Eye that are on, that have sworn blood oaths to kill 1,000 demons before they can return home, or some other kind of reason for them, for that force aligned with Order to be so deep undercover.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. As you said, every narrative campaign quest will have a specific reason for that warband being there. I think even as they continue to add different chaos aligned warbands, and we don't know if we'll get that or not after the Signs of the Flame. It'll be interesting to see how they play with that in terms of how aware are they that they're following chaos. Because some of the warbands more so than others.
Yeah. I'm very. This isn't Paul's question, but now I'm freewheeling. I'm very curious to see where they go miniature wise next.
Yeah.
Do they want to do more warbands? Are they going to give us some more like monsters and mercenaries? Are they going to give us like one-off characters, terrain? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see that.
Our next question is from Thundercake. He asks, do the Grand Alliance battle tomes have lore bits in them? What am I missing from a lore narrative perspective by not getting the associated books? And obviously, we don't know yet. We have, very little information so far, but did you have any thoughts you want to share, Paven?
So what we do know is that there are going to be new quests in them, and those quests will have, all the quests have some lore associated with them, big or small. We talked about a lot about how the quests tie into different geographies within the 8 points, or within the Bloodwind spoil. So I think you'll miss out on those. I don't think there'll be like broad narrative beats, so they won't I don't think they'll progress the story of the 8 points forward. Not that we've ever really progressed it forward, except in Morathi, but it's not really clear how that affects Warcry, right, in the end.
Yeah. And as we talked about last time, you can have it affect it or not, really. So it doesn't necessarily have an impact on the AOS setting.
So yeah, I would say unless you're enthusiasts like ourselves, I would say get the books that are for the factions you want to play. I think they will be like muskets for those.
Yeah, I agree. Our next couple questions are from Travis, K7 Kicker. He asks, do we think we might get more warbands with each Broken Realms book? And just to clarify on that, we didn't actually get any warbands as a result of Broken Realms, but obviously the Khainite Shadowstalkers tie in to Broken Realms Morathi quite well. Yeah, so what do you think, Paven, with the new 3-4 more books that we're getting? Do you think we'll get warbands associated with those?
That would be very interesting. I haven't thought about that. I think probably no. That certainly isn't the pattern. It could be a pattern. If that's how they want to roll it out. They seem willing to tie Warcry kind of tightly to what's happening in Age of Sigmar. Like the context of Catacombs leads directly into the beginning of the Morathi book. So that could be a possible. I kind of hope, and I said this last episode, that they decouple those two quickly. I really want Warcry to be doing its own thing that is kind of it's on such a small scale it doesn't matter what's happening with regards to gods and heroes.
Right. Yeah, much like Warhammer Underworld. There's unique things going on there, but they don't have a larger impact on AOS specifically. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I agree with you. I think that we already have Hedonites of Slaanesh, so the next Broken Realms book will probably have more to do with Slaanesh. But those warbands are already represented, and I think much like we talked about last episode, is you can tailor your warband to be from certain factions, or perhaps their quest or their purpose for being in the 8 points is related to what's going on. And of course, you can just play Warcry in one of the other realms, to take place more closely with the narrative. So Travis's second question was, do you feel the quest for the Shadowstalkers from Catacombs ties into the Broken Realms Morathi book? And we talked a lot about that last time. I definitely think it does. One of their quests specifically ties into what happened in the Morathi books, and even the short story that we got.
Yep.
So we will hop on to our next question from Toast, and this one is all about you, Paven.
All right, here I come.
Tell me more about the Paven method of hobbying, buying new stuff. How did it start? Why do you do it? Do you get stuff done quicker? Do you ever get stuck on a project? Should I do this too? So go for it.
I feel like I could do a whole show on what are my thoughts about my hobby process, but I'll try to keep it as brief as I possibly can. So I had the kind of a couple things I didn't like about my hobby, and this was a few years ago. One was I had too many miniatures that either sat in boxes unpainted or unassembled or, in some state where I wasn't using them. And I would feel like a sense of stress and guilt about the amount of things I had. Or I would feel like buyer's remorse about buying something that I didn't actually like use or want or like end up wanting, like caught up in the moment. And so what I did was I thought I would challenge, and part of this is also I really like to play with all painted stuff. I think that really is where I like my hobby to sit. And, it's the most fun, like kind of cinematic, beautiful version of the game. Like I really like to think of like tabletop games as kind of a performance art almost, although it seems very percentage. But I think it like looks really cool on the table when it's all really nice terrain and the army's all painted and smashing into each other. That is like, it gives me good hobby feelings. And so a way I was going to try to resolve this is I was kind of cycling down. This is going to be a little bit of story time. I was cycling down from playing War Machine, and 8th edition, Warhammer 40k 8th edition had just come out, and I was like really excited about that. And I was like, well, like, do I want to get into a new game and a new system? Am I going to paint my stuff? Like what, how? And so I kind of told myself, I'm like, all right, I will buy one model, and if I paint it, I will try to get into the hobby. And then I will get the next thing, and I was going to do like a start collecting tournament at the Warhammer store. So I bought a Eldar Altarch, and I painted it. Felt good, looked good. It was one of my better painted models at that point in time. And then so I bought a start collecting box for Eldar, and then I painted that. And then that took me a while, but I painted it. And then I was like, all right, well, this is how I think I like my hobby to be. Is I'm just going to only buy the next thing when I've completely painted the previous thing. And so in order to not get too deep in that hole, and I like buying things. It's very exciting, and I get to pick it out and think about it. It's such a nice, a good feeling, especially when I earn it. Yeah. So it gave me a lot of positive feedback loops about painting my stuff, about buying things, about really only very intent. Like I don't impulse buy anything because it's like it's something I get to make a purchase like once a month or once every, maybe longer than that if I buy the Catacombs box. Mm-hmm. And so it's always a very intentional purpose, and I almost never buy something I don't like, or not really excited about. And I actually paint way more because if you get excited about something, the only way to get it is if I paint my current backlog. So it creates a bunch of virtuous cycles, and I've been doing this for almost, I think 2.5, when the 8th edition came out, like 3 years ago, maybe more than that. And I have painted everything I bought since then and got to work on some of my deep backlog. And so, part of the process was I was like, with that new Eldar miniature, I was like, okay, starting today, my backlog doesn't exist. That's all in the attic now. It's not real. My backlog is this one miniature, and I'm always going to get back to 0 backlog. And that way, it's not, it would be too big of a hole if you already have this big old pile of plastic to like dig yourself out of that. But just start today. Just say like, I'm going to paint my last purchase, and then I'll paint the next thing, and then go from there. And now I'm at the point where I not only paint everything I have, but I also like paint stuff off of my older backlog. Like I dig stuff out of the attic and paint some of those. So I've made meaningful progress on my Littersman Force. Well, I painted a warband that I've talked about, and I've painted some other things. And that feels really good, and it's kind of where I want my hobby to sit, and it encourages me to paint more, and I almost always play with all painted stuff, and it works really well for me. And I know that's not for everybody. A lot of people want to play with, like, you want to play the whole new army, and I'm saying, like, if this sounds horrible to you, don't do it. I do it because it makes me happier. That's kind of the point, and it makes me enjoy my hobby more. So that was a long answer.
No, that's perfect.
I think I answered all of Toast's questions.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Toast's other request was to have me rap the intro song for Dogs. But I'm sorry, I do not have that
so
skill.
This is definitely the easier one. Maybe, when we do our first live show, we'll rap the intro together.
We will give it our best shot, perhaps.
Yeah. We'll have to figure out what the intro says first. But,
I have it on my T-shirt. That's what it works.
Me too. It's hard to read that T-shirt too.
Right. Okay, so our next question is from Rapturous Rex. He asks, does adding mercenaries as leaders add or detract from the themes of each warband? Is it a net positive or net negative? And I think this is in reference to some of the leaks regarding the Grand Alliance battle tomes, and that the heroes in there could potentially be the leaders of your warband. What do you think?
I think it's a net positive. I think it's having more choice in your warband is a way to be more narrative, and that is a good thing. I'm curious to whether what happens to mercenaries if everybody's like a first order warband member. If there's like a leader version and a mercenary version, or how that works. But yeah, I think it's great, and I think having choice allows you to be more thematic and lean into your own personal narrative more.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I too am interested to see, do you choose the leader versus the mercenary, as your leader to start with in the initial part of the campaign, or do you eventually replace it? But I think having the choice to have one of the heroes be your leader in your warband can create a unique opportunity where you can move from Warcry to Path to Glory to small games of AOS to large games of AOS. So my hero has started off in this small warband. He continues to grow, and now he's got more armies. He's got more people. Then you could really build a neat story for your forces that way.
Yeah.
All right. And our last question from Severe Elon is, did your warband participate in the story of Broken Realms Marathi, or were they off doing their own things? Basically, with this huge battle around Varanthrax's Maw, how would you have been pulled into the fighting? So would your Scions of Flame have partaken in any way, shape, or form?
I haven't thought about that very much. It's an interesting question. I don't know. Josh, what are your thoughts? Does our campaign, does it take place before, during, or after the events of Marathi? I was kind of thinking before, but I want to kind of get to a point. I want to agree what the time frame we're talking about.
Yeah, no, I think I had in my mind, in my narrative, since we've been sent to the Maw to die, and we're searching for someone else to trade for our souls, that this kind of takes events before Marathi's ascension. So, but yeah, maybe we finish up our campaign with a unique battle where we've got random events occurring as the Varanthrax's Maw is being invaded.
That would be cool.
Yeah, have Chaos Warriors rushing on and having, Daughters of Cain rushing on, or, whatnot.
Stormcast, yeah.
All right. Well, that ties up all the questions we have for this particular episode, and we hope you enjoyed hearing some of the linked narratives that we found throughout the books and references to other games or other parts of the Warhammer world. And if you find any other interesting links, please shoot us a message. Let us know. We'd definitely be interested in hearing about it. Yeah, anything else you'd like to add?
Should I wrap us up? Should I plug some things?
Go for it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to our show. You can check us up on Twitter at Dogs of Warcry. Josh Man's at Twitter. Please, the best way to hang out and chat with us is at themortalrealms.com/Discord. That's where we get our questions from. That's where we hang out. I will drop all of the pictures of the stuff I talked about during today's episode. Well, I'll try to. I always mean to. The Wednesday we drop this episode, so I'll put all the dump in there. So if you want to check out, my Army on Parade board and my Science progress, or the basing and all that kind of stuff. If I have a picture for it, I'll put it in the Discord. Check it out there. We got an email, dogsofwarcry@gmail.com. You can hit us up there. I don't know what else. Where can they find you, Josh?
Yep, all of those places are perfect. And again, we'll be sharing pictures in the Discord, as we make progress, and as I continue to flip-flop color schemes, you can see that struggle I go through. And hopefully you can join us in that path and share your ideas and input as well.
It's time to put a muzzle on this episode. If it was a good dog, support the show with a positive review on iTunes, sharing it with friends, joining us for hobby discussions at themortalrealms.com/Discord, or leave a tip at themortalrealms.com/Patreon. More content is available at themortalrealms.com and on Twitter at Dogs of Warcry.
Welcome to the Midwest side, those groups, this narratively driven podcast, you'll never turn right. I'll be in the fall. We get so far, dice roll, roll, and the spawns never stolen, roll, to the Dogs of Warcry.